Welcome to Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things, the podcast show. I am your host, Carrie Roberts, and today I have another fabulous guest. I have Dr. Karen Khan. I am so excited to have you here today, Karen. Welcome.
Thank you, Carrie. I'm excited to be here too.
Yeah, so we are talking today about this idea of how to kind of harness our own gifts and fulfill our purpose and create a life of joy. And I want to start with this stat that I saw on your website. And you said that 30% of the population are considered highly sensitive. And I wanted to know, first of all, how do you define sensitive and what does that stat represent?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Actually, the research is done by Elaine Aron and her team over many, many years. And they have a very specific criteria. Like it's, you can literally go to her website and do a quiz. And figure out whether you're in that sensitivity realm. Now, in the past, they said it was 20% of the population, but in 2018, they did a newer study and found that it was about 30% of the population. So these questions talk about, people's sensitivities to light and food and emotions and smells and textures and things like that. And I don't know about you, but growing up, I was made fun of for being overly sensitive, and so was my mom. And there's a lot of us who are kind of hiding in the shadows, trying not to be sensitive. But these are the people that are incredibly spiritually gifted and may not know that they are, because their sensitivity actually is their gift. And if they know how to use it, then we can create that life of joy and kind of fulfill our mission. And that's why I'm really passionate about talking about it.
Well, I fall into that category. And I will say the term I've been told to use is that I feel deeply. But
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard that before, but I have had people say, when you, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, right? Like if you're emotional about something, they'll say, well, stop being so sensitive.
Yep.
And I hate that comment, because you're like, but why? Because I'm expressing I'm sad. Like, why is that a bad thing? Is that something that most people hate hearing, or is it people that are more sensitive, or kind of what's happening when somebody is saying that to you, but also when you're the other person experiencing it?
Well, our society, if you look at the big picture, our society does not necessarily applaud or award or reward people who are highly sensitive. In fact,
Mhm.
think about superheroes. I mean, with the exception of maybe Agents of Shield, an empath they don't consider a superhero. There are some shows that show that, but majority of the superheroes are strong and they're tough, and so we applaud that kind of thing. So we've had it ingrained in our society that strength means being tough, and being sensitive to emotions and energies is considered weak, which is completely the opposite, actually, because you can be incredibly powerful if you can feel into things, like in the maybe the ancient ways where the shaman of the tribe was the most important person next to the chief, right? Because the shaman could sense what was going to happen with the neighbors. Were they going to war with them? If they, the tribe was having an existential crisis, the shaman would save them, and the medicine man. So we've lost that in our society. And the person who's saying you're too sensitive, now it doesn't mean they're not sensitive themselves, but what it means is that they are basically conditioned to do that, and they want the best for the other person. They don't want them to be sad. It's really uncomfortable to feel another, or to see someone else sad or upset, and they think that's not right. That's not normal because maybe they don't feel so they're just
Yeah.
trying their best to help the other person. But as you know, and as I know, it is very annoying to have somebody say that to us over and over again, because it makes us feel like we're not enough, that there's something wrong with us and we need to be fixed. And that is so far from the truth.
Yes, I would agree. And I think I'm sure a lot of men probably struggle with this more because, as you mentioned earlier, even more so, this identity of you have to be tough. But some being able to express our emotions, be emotionally intelligent is powerful and attractive and such a good quality to have. So I want to go to your story for a moment. You talked about, this is something you experienced. Was there a moment in your life that you said, okay, I've realized I'm a sensitive person, and you know what? It's not a bad thing. And these are maybe things I can do to actually go more into that and use it as a superpower?
I think that for me, I had to, and I really appreciate and have gratitude for it. I had to get sick. I had to get really sick. And as a medical doctor, being as, smart as I was, that I really had to know what people were going through. And even though I was considering myself, a very empathetic and sensitive in that way to other people's feelings, I really didn't know what people were going through until I went through it myself.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I was started that healing process and realizing that, connecting with my inner wisdom, my spirit, was one of the best ways for me to get better, then started looking into what's outside conventional medicine. And there were, of course, nutritional things. It's so sad to say that, right? Outside conventional medicine. you know, and energy healing and psychic gifts. And I met with a Reiki master that helped me through a lot of psychological counseling that was so helpful and healing. And I thought, actually, I'm pretty good at some of this stuff. I was like, wow, I can feel that, or I can see that. And she really validated some of these things, making it not so weird anymore,
Yeah.
and making it like, wow, it's actually a superpower to be able to feel into things. And, in fact, when I was practicing the pendulum in class, I was terrible at it. And I had such low self-esteem. I was like, oh no, I'm the worst person in class. And my teacher was great. She said, well, Karen, actually, you're sensitive enough that you don't need the pendulum because your body gives you the information. The pendulum for you is like an extra arm. You don't really need it. And that made me
Mm.
feel a lot better and realized, okay, so I suck at this tool, but I can feel things, outside of that and using different things. So my illness really was a beautiful bridge to connect me with my sensitivity as a superpower.
Yeah, it's interesting when we're talking about this concept of sensitivity. Even speaking with myself, like I'm sensitive to foods and sensitive to, I'm very much about treating people well and, all these different things that I sometimes feel are common sense. And then I'm like, oh, they're not, or other people aren't experiencing. I don't know. So is there like, do you think everybody has an element of sensitivity, or do you think it's a spectrum, or some people aren't tapping into it? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think that every single human being has, his or her unique gifts, things
Hmm.
that are absolutely their genius and they're good at. And as far as the sensitivity, even though the stats show it's 30% of the population, what I'm noticing, I've done, thousands upon thousands of, healing sessions and been a doctor, delivered a bunch of babies, what I've noticed over time is even those people that I would judge non-sensitive are now lately becoming more sensitive to energy. And it's hard to say exactly why that is. I mean, I talk about in my, more spiritual esoteric teachings about the ascension process or the expansion process, and that I believe people are becoming more and more gifted, if you will. So even when someone like there was a Kung Fu student, a co-student with me, and we were doing some practice together, and he was probably the least into this stuff as you can get. Okay. Didn't believe in intuition, didn't believe in energy healing. Like he just kind of doesn't roll his eyes. He's polite, but he's like, okay, whatever. And I'm, doing this practice with him. And I thought, I'm gonna try something. So he was dropping his one arm too low, in this practice, in this kung
Mm.
fu practice. So I said to him telepathically, dude, you're dropping your right arm too low. Right. And within about, 2 seconds, he corrected it. And of course, me, I had to go, oh my God. He's like, "What?" And I'm like, "You heard me telepathically." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Wow, you said telepathically to you, you're dropping this arm and then you make it up and it's like, it's all good now and that's so cool." And he's like, "Okay." So I think that like my father typically is not sensitive, but what's
Yeah.
fascinating, my mom is super sensitive, right? So she's had chronic pain, like she feels deeply in her body, all these things. And he's like, "Oh, I don't have pain. I don't know what it's like."
Yeah.
But of late, he's had pain. Now, I'm not saying
Mm.
that's good, but what I'm saying is that he can empathize now with her sensitivity, even though he still says he's not sensitive. That now he knows his body can feel pain and what that's like. So he has become softer. He has become more empathetic. He has become more patient, with my mother and her sensitivity and her emotions. And so I believe that as a society, honestly, think this is part of our human evolution. So everyone has that gift, and it's just, yes, maybe developing on a spectrum and getting deeper and deeper as we go.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, when you're talking about it, I kind of use the word awareness too. In therapy, they use that word quite often, having an awareness of yourself, of your thoughts, of what's going on. A lot of people are not aware. Maybe they think they are, but till they go through this process. And we're talking about today kind of how to harness your gifts, fulfill your purpose. So, how does somebody who maybe isn't normally or organically as sensitive become more aware of who they are, what they're great at, kind of focus on these gifts so that they can kind of live a life that they enjoy and that suits who they are in their soul?
Well, some of the folks that are not, that not identifying as sensitive, nor do they want to,
Mhm.
sometimes they don't even have that desire, right?
Yeah.
Until their life stops working. And
Mm.
then sometimes they have to get to that existential crisis where things are not working, their relationships are falling apart, they're broke, all these kind of things. And then they finally go, okay, what do I do now? And they get really kind of deep into that dark night of the soul, like I did with my illness. So sometimes it does take that kind of thing. And other times it's because they see someone that they love who is sensitive and see them blossom. Here's the cool part. So when they see someone who is empathic or an empath, someone who's maybe had a lot of issues in the past because of their sensitivity, when they see them blossoming, when they see them happy and joyful and really, having that joie de vivre, like that passion for life, then it kind of makes them go, huh, hmm, well, I wonder what they're doing. I mean, that I find is one of the fastest, well, fast may be a relative word, but the best ways that those of us who are sensitive can make a difference to those people who are not sensitive, who don't even know that they have gifts and to tap into them. Because if we're not good examples and models of it, we're
Mhm.
falling apart, always anxious and depressed. Why should they? It just feels like I don't want to go there, right? So that's one of the ways that I have found, practically speaking, that we can, help those by just being the example.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's like, you start to attract a certain level of energy or people or things into your life depending on how you kind of, for me at least, how you feel, how you're thinking about things. So that's kind of interesting and makes a lot of sense. And I find that, like, when you talk to someone, as you just mentioned, that's I would say, a high performer in life. They're doing something they love, they're happy, they're in a successful relationship, whatever it is, and you ask them, like, what are they doing differently, it's never like what you think. It's never like this, like, concrete tactical thing. It's usually a very inner work, spiritual type of thing. And a lot of people be like, okay, whatever, that doesn't make any sense, or I don't know how to do that. But I do find that to be quite common.
Mhm.
So can we go through maybe like a couple steps if somebody is like either at the point where, like you said, they're at a breaking point and they're ready to make some sort of change, or they're like, I'm curious about this, I'm not normally aware or sensitive, but I want to be. How do they get to that next step? Like, what are these kind of first few steps that somebody can take?
Well, my favorite really is to get to know yourself. Now, I
Mhm.
know that sounds trite, but the way I get people to know themselves is to really be in their bodies and feel their bodies. As you know, many people are not self-aware when it comes to their body, but those that are highly sensitive are acutely aware often because
Mhm.
they're so clairsentient. In other words, they're, instead of clairvoyant, they're clairsentient. They may have both, where they feel deeply in their physical body. So by reconnecting people to the body, it's one way or one doorway into knowing fully who they are. I heard this from Carolyn Mace one time. She says, if you're having trouble healing and creating or manifesting things you want in your life, it could very well be because your attention is scattered all over. Your awareness and attention are scattered in the past and the future. You're never in the now. And here's the thing: if you want to heal, all your energy has to be in the present moment. And I was like, oh, big ding, 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 ding. Okay. So, how do we get into the present moment? I didn't understand this because my mind is like, ADD. And I mean, I can be very focused for sure and can
Yeah.
sit for long periods of time focusing, but at the same time, I love so many things. I do get distracted. So I'll start doing something and then I'll start doing something else and so on and so forth. So, but when I actually feel my body, then it actually brings all the energy into the present moment. So it's not so much like I thought being present was like, I don't know, like breathing really carefully, or, whatever, walking like a zombie, looking at my feet. Like I just didn't understand what being present was until I watched a scary movie and couldn't sleep for 3 days. And then I watched the sequel and realized, okay, I didn't sleep last time. And I'm not sure what to do because I tried everything under the sun, the meditation, the vocalization, the relaxation technique, the tapping, nothing worked. So I thought, I'm just going to be scared. So I thought, okay, so what does my body feel like when it's scared? And it's like, it was like caffeine. And I was like, wow, that's so interesting. But it's like 2 seconds ago. I didn't even notice, right? So I'm totally in the body. And then I fell asleep. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's what they mean by being present. So that's my go-to is feeling the body. And we have a 3-step process. And there's a free, 30-minute training that I have called Stillness on the Fly, where we teach people how to access their body. So whether you've never done it before or you're really good at it, it just helps you use these 3 steps to focus on the energy or vibration or movement in the body. So when you're telling your mind to pay attention to what's going on in the body, that's when we pull all the circuits in the present moment. That's when we feel who we really are. And what I've noticed is people start to optimize their intuitive gifts, because in that stillness, if you will, because you're so focused on what's feeling in your body, the mind actually stops going blah 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 blah, your shopping list, blah blah blah, Christmas, blah blah, because you're like, okay, what am I doing? Okay, where's the energy? Oh, it's over here. Oh, that's interesting. It's on that side. Oh wow, and I don't feel so much on my left ankle. And so you're getting it so busy, it stills. So the mind stills because it's so focused on the movement. And what happens is in that space, the intuitive hits drop in. And even when you have a question or frustrated about something, in my book, Sensitivities, Your Superpower, we talk about stillness through observing internal movement, this process with negative emotions. So we have the negative emotion or we have the negative scenario. We don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. How many people do you know just kind of pull their hair going, I don't know what to do, right? And they're freaking out. But if we just go into the body and feel the freak out in our body, what happens is we quiet our minds, and then it's like guidance comes in, boom, very subtly, but it just drops in, and you just feel like doing something, or you have an idea. And that's how it works. And it's becoming so much more efficient. I'm saving so much time by being in the body day in and day out, even for seconds at a time. That's how people can really access or start to access their superpowers, just by being in the body and feeling the body. It's free, it's easy. We teach children this, and sometimes people think it's almost like, oh, is that all? And the answer is, yeah, actually it is. Of course, we have other chapters.
Yeah. It's so funny because as you're saying this, I'm like getting so excited because I talk about, I do this a lot. And I will say sometimes, right, you're like, okay, I know this works. And then you sit down and you're like, why is the answer not coming? And you're like, because you're not being present, right? So you have to, there are moments where you're like, hey, you can't force it. It has to come. But there have been times that my intuition has been so strong that's led to, you need to move here. And I don't know why, but I just feel it, or you
Wow.
need to
Yeah.
do this. And it's such a cool feeling. And I've asked other people, I'm like, have you ever had that? And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm like, really? Because it's so strong. And I know I'm a big fan of Oprah. She always talks about, when you're not sure, as you just mentioned, get still,
Yeah.
and you'll start to kind of hear it. So when people say, in theory, this is easy, but I think for a lot of people, when they're unsure of something, it can come off as a negative emotion, and people don't want to sit in a negative emotion.
Right.
So how do you get someone to feel a comfortableness to sit in that, to get to the relaxation state, to get to the clarity and the intuition?
Well, yeah, just like, me being scared out of my mind,
Mhm.
watching this movie is just that willingness to just feel in the body. I mean, sometimes it does take a little coaching, like, hey, No one's attacking you right now. You're safe in your house,
Yeah.
And with that knowledge, then you can go, okay, let me just try what does it feel like in my body to be frustrated? Oh, I feel it in the pit of my stomach. Wow. Okay. What else? Anything else? Yeah, I feel a pressure in my head. Okay. And you're just like investigating,
Mhm.
so if one has a very bright mind, especially, it's good to put it to good use. To like investigate. And so that being just willing to be in the body with whatever the emotion is enough. It's hard to convince someone unless they try it, unless
Yeah.
they do it. And oftentimes it does resolve the negative emotion or even give you the aha to the negative situation. Not that we're attached to that, because then you're out of your body again. So
Yeah.
if you're like, I need an answer, I need an answer, I need an answer, you're not feeling your body, then yeah, it's not going to work that way. So it does take a little bit of practice because we are not taught this. I love it when children learn it from their parents learn it, they teach it to their children to go to their happy place and they get it like that.
Yeah. They're
Like they
very
can go
open.
have a horrible, allergic reaction and whatever. And the parents say, okay, go to your still point or go to your happy place. And they go, okay. And they're like, oh, yep, my reaction's gone. And then they go back to playing.
Yeah. We can learn, I always say, so much from young kids and those over the age of 65. There is something, an element of presence that those age groups have that us in the middle don't always. And yes, I used to teach kids dance, and I would see that all the time, and that quick change that you're talking about. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful feeling. Has there been any like moment for you in the past or recently that you would like to share where you had something and you felt that sense of intuition, or I need to do this, or this is my next step from doing this practice?
Well, it's interesting as, sometimes us humans are very used to forcing ourselves to do what we think is for a good reason. So, yeah, there was a group I was working with to try to help with self governance recently and to get together in the community. And the ideas were good. So, the idea of getting together in a group, having high vibrational people together, creating some sort of self governance format was good. The only thing was my body was like really resisting it. And I was like, okay, I know some of this is not my wheelhouse, but let me just play around with this and do my best. So I, stuck with it for, gosh, a couple of months.
Right.
And then the funny thing is that the internal structure just kind of disintegrated, fell apart, different changes. And that was very interesting to me because it was like my body was like, I don't want to do that. But
Mhm.
my mind was like, it'd be good. It'd be good. We need to learn how to
You probably
self-govern, right?
should, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just a little bit longer. And so what I learned from that, I ended up, saying, you know what, I'm things have changed around. I'm not feeling in alignment with doing this anymore. So I decommitted from that, giving them my reasons. There are reasons we don't have to get into. And I just said, look, if things change on your end and it's a vibrational match, I'll be back. So there's
mm,
that open doorway. The fascinating thing is after I left, more things fell apart. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I ended up just going, well, what do I feel like doing? Right. So I'm like, I
yes.
like meeting with my local friends. So what? We don't have this plan and this plan and this spreadsheet and this budget, and who cares? So we just meet, and we're meeting every week. We're sharing a
Mhm.
good meal. We talk about consciousness and spirituality and things that we love to do. And that feels good. And I feel energy and alive. And so my body was telling me, go where the energy is, go where it feels good.
Yes.
And I guess I had to force myself a little bit to come back around. Go, oh yeah, that's right.
Well, and
Yeah.
you bring up a good point, because I think, again, this idea of like, what feels good, it's something that I have found if I don't check in,
Mm,
then it's something I might push aside, right? But it might come up where you're like, wait, why am I frustrated in this situation all the time? And you check in, you're like, oh, because it doesn't feel good. I don't like this. Why don't I like it? And I sometimes probably overthink. But a lot of people will do, especially like in professional life, right? They'll say like, don't worry about what you feel. Like, this is the path. This is what you have to do. And people get stuck in that, and then they don't feel good. Or people will say, don't worry about your feelings. Feelings and emotions are fleeting. So is there a balance between listening to them, checking in with them being important, but not allowing them to overtake or dictate things, or should they?
Yeah, it's from my point of view, a lot of times what prevents us from stepping forward is fear. But
Hmm.
that fear can be very, very subtle and can look like intuition. That's where it
Mm.
gets kind of tricky. And that's why doing the stillness through observing internal movement, I find so powerful because you're in your body and you're not trying to figure it out. When you're in the body, it's amazing how the answers pop up. And so, even if one is frustrated or trying to force, when you're in the body, these things start to transform and change on their own, and ideas pop up and things like that. So, for one person, it may look like, oh, she's forcing, but another person doing exactly the same thing, you'd be like, oh, it's fluid. So one of the things we can do in the healing realm is really connect to, spirit, source, our guides, whatever you want to call it, and just say, okay, so I'm having this issue with this situation. So help me connect to what truly is for my highest and greatest good,
Hmm.
right? And then go into vibrating or feeling your body. And sometimes you'll just have a natural outcropping. You'll just feel like doing this. Or like the other day, I was going through another frustration. It wasn't that big. It was all this paperwork I wanted to do. And but I was really, oh, there's a deadline, there's a finish line, I got to get it done in time. And I'm sitting on the floor trying to figure out technically how to scan things in with my phone. And there was a shadow, and I was just about to, I was like, wow, this is interesting. I rarely get the stress. This is very interesting. so so I'm sitting on the floor. My husband's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm getting frustrated. He's like, I think you need a brain break. It's 9 o'clock at night and you've been working on this. And I said, okay. So I let it go, and I knew it was exactly the right thing to do. And I literally did not touch it for 2 whole days. And here there's a deadline, right? And then when I came back, I said, I'm not doing this until I feel like doing it. So then I was able to rest and, continue practicing my stillness. And then when I did decide that I felt like, attacking this particular set of paperwork again, it dropped in, oh, you know what? You know how to do this, this, this. You can do this PDF and this app, and you don't have to sit on the floor and scan it. I'm like, oh, it's so much easier. And then I got excited. I'm learning how to use this program I already have, and it's so much easier and it's faster. And now, if other people want to know how to do it, I can tell them how to do it. But I mean, literally 2 days before, sitting on the ground, completely like almost in a puddle of tears, right? Trying to figure it
Yeah.
out. So it's just another learning to go, okay, remember that, Karen. So when you feel that, stop.
Hmm. Yes, like retraining, right? Like your
Yes.
body, your emotions, your mind to be like, okay, every time I do this, this happens and it's not great. But
Right.
when
But
I
you,
did
you could
this,
have
it worked.
you could have the same action that looks on the outside person. Well, she's still doing the paperwork, right?
Hmm.
So, but it's like, but I'm doing it from a different perspective and a different
Yes.
space energetically, because now it feels good to do it. Whereas 2 days ago, it did not feel
Hmm.
good, but it was the same paperwork. So
Yeah.
we can have that happen.
Yeah, a different, yeah, like you said, different perspective, different mindset. No, I think this is great. And again, kind of going back to our main topic, it really just start with getting still and getting a little bit more in tune with our body, with our emotions, with ourselves. So if people want to learn more about anything we spoke about or they want to connect with you, where is the best place to do that?
Well, I'd love for them to learn that stillness on the fly, that STOM methodology, because I am a very, very busy person, and many people are, and I don't really sit still that long. So if somebody is not a big fan of 2 hour meditations or even 30-minute meditations, then I would highly recommend you check this out. So
Mhm.
stillnessonthefly.com is the link to the free training, and there's a little MP3 you can download if you'd like to, just to have you, kind of walk you through the procedure and how to do it. But it takes longer to teach it than it is just to do it. We teach it
Yeah.
to kids, like I said. It's very easy to learn. It's also, if you're a reader, it's also step by step outlined in chapter 4 of my book, Sensitivity is Your Superpower, among other, actual, superpower procedures like weather magic, transformational telepathy, things like that, even a little bit of telekinesis. So it's, all the fun stuff is in the book. And of course, manifesting your ideal reality. But it all starts with being here and being present And if you're not a good meditator, stillnessonthefly.com is where you want to go. And if you want a copy of the book, KarenCan.com, which is my main website, there's a banner at the top. We're still offering the $1,000 worth of bonus gifts if you buy a copy of the book, whether it be an ebook from me directly or from any of the book retailers. You can fill in your name and email to get those free bonuses. So we have little mini classes and mini, energy healings in there, and then you'll be on my mailing list. And we do lots of fun stuff every month: free interviews, free mini healings every month, things like that. So yeah, I look forward to anybody who feels resonant with what we're talking about today joining our tribe.
Yes, I love it. And the last question I like to ask all of my guests, Karen, is what is one word or quote or mantra that you try to live by every single day?
Yes, so many good ones. Well, I this may not pertain to our topic for today, but one of my favorite ones is see the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
So when we see the big picture, we see how we're all connected to each other, that it's never really about us versus them, good versus evil. We continue to live on, even if we're out of body. And when we see the big picture, then there's nothing actually to be stressed or upset about. So I do live by that.
I like it. Well, it has been wonderful to have you here and to talk about this topic. And I'm excited to learn more. I know you've got some great videos online as well. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, so much. I love being here. Thank you so much, Carrie. And thanks everyone for listening in.